Peace, everybody. Welcome to Capital Combat. The name says it all. I'm Hakeem Branch, and today I'm going to go into UFC 204, which is happening this Saturday on pay-per-view. Now, if you caught, if you caught Rob's video, he does pretty much a preview or the schedule of the rest of the year as far as boxing and mixed martial arts, and he touched on UFC 204 a little bit. Just going over who was on the card. So if you haven't watched that video, make sure you do. And now I'm going to go into some of the specific fights on that card, and I'm going to try to be as brief as possible. Now, the main event, we have Michael Bisping defending the middleweight title against Dan Henderson. Also on that card, we have a middleweight fight between Gegard Mousasi and Vitor Belfort. And then we have a light heavyweight matchup between Jimmy Manuwa and Ovince St. Preux, also known as OSP. We have Stefan Struve fighting on that card, fighting a gentleman who I do not know at all, to be honest with you. And then there's some other up-and-coming guys opening up the card. So this should be a pretty entertaining card. It's kind of being overshadowed by 205 because of the star power on that one and the current golden boy and Conor McGregor. But there should be some pretty good fights on this one as well. I'm going to start with St. Preux and Manuwa. I think this will be a pretty entertaining, pretty competitive fight. Like Rob said, Ovince St. Preux is one of those guys who does very good against the mid-level competition, but not so great against the top-level competition. We last saw him losing a decision to John Jones for what was the interim UFC title. I don't think that is a thing anymore. I think Daniel Cormier is just the full champ after John Jones's troubles, to say the least. So Manuwa has not fought since being knocked out by Anthony Johnson over a year ago, I think in September, and St. Preux fought earlier this year. He's a little bit fresher. He's seen the better competition, and I think he'll be able to pull this one out, probably by decision. Manuwa is a pretty capable guy, but they're in the same boat, as in they do pretty good against the mid-level guys, but not so great against the top-level guys. And because St. Preux has seen more top-level guys, I believe he pulls this one out. Now, in the co-main event, we have two highly ranked middleweights fighting for a shot at the current champ, Michael Bisping. In Belfort, we last saw him losing to Jacare, who is also a top, I think he's the number one rated. He's in the top 5 of the middleweight division. And Mousasi is also in the top 10 as well. And he, like Belfort, they're both very good strikers, and they both have very underrated grappling games as well. Belfort, being the buzzsaw that he is, likes to try to get people out very, very quickly. And if he doesn't, it's usually not good for him. I think Mousasi can weather the initial onslaught of Belfort and end up stopping him later on in the fight, maybe the second or third round. I'm not quite sure how. Belfort has been stopped in a number of ways, but Mousasi, being as multi-talented as he is, I think he'll get the job done. Let's move on to the main event. Now, in the main event, we've got a rematch, a grudge match, all thrown into a title match. Now, normally, the champion fighting like the number 13 guy is laughable. But in this case, all of the other middleweights are currently busy. In other fights, you have the former champ Rockhold fighting in a rematch against Jacare, who's been waiting for a title fight for a very long time. You have Mousasi and Belfort fighting each other. Tim Kennedy, who I think is number 12, he's fighting Rashad Evans. There's a lot of guys that are, most of the top 10 is pretty booked. So you get the fanfare of the grudge match with this fight. And in that last fight, Henderson knocked Bisping out cold at UFC 100. It was the knockout of the year for that year. I think it was 2009. But since then, he's been up and down. He's lost quite a few matches. He looked painfully slow. He is 46. And Bisping hasn't looked the best either, but he turned out the performance of his career versus Luke Rockhold and was able to capture the title. In this one, I think he retains because, like I said, Henderson has been painfully slow. And while he still has that knockout shot, I think Bisping, being cognizant of that, will be able to stay away from him and outpoint him enough to get a decision and maintain the belt. So that was it. Really, really quick. Just wanted to get that out there. Hope you guys like this really quick preview. Make sure you like it. If you have not done so, subscribe to the channel. Thanks. You can hit us up on any social network platforms. The links are down below. Make sure you check out the videos that Rob has put out as well. Like I said, a scheduled video. And I also put out one on Tyson Fury and Vladimir Klitschko or the boxing side. But stay tuned for the next videos, and I'll see you then. Peace.
This is round one, and you've already lost. They don't seem to see that everything we've done is coming and cost. My fists are on fire. I perform till I perspire. My demons are in a rage. Keep thinking that it's a game. I kick crime, hurricane. I told them I don't play. I'm liquid.
Black Street Fighter.